The warm light of the late afternoon poured through the dusty windows of Miller's General Store, casting soft shadows on the worn wooden floors. The store, so familiar, so constant, felt almost like a memory. I stood in the same aisles my father had walked down all those years ago. The same shelves that had not changed in decades. Each piece of merchandise now just a relic of the past. The cash register on the counter, once shiny with brass, now dull and weathered, spoke of years of neglect, and the air carried the scent of old wood and dust. Yet, beneath all of this there was something enduring, something that had always been here, something that had always been a part of me. I reached out and ran my fingers along a shelf, a habit from childhood. It was in this very store, where my father had taught me how to stock shelves, how to speak to the regulars, how to count and make sure nothing went missing. This place had been his life, and now as I stood in his shoes it was mine too. Yet my siblings didn't see it that way. My brother Andrew in his expensive suit, and my sister Lisa in her designer dress, both looked at me like I had lost my mind. They had flown in from their respective coastal cities for the reading of our father's will, and already they were arguing over how to split his assets, the large bank accounts, the properties, everything but the store. The store they seemed to think was a burden. "I'm taking the store," I said quietly, cutting through their arguments. Lisa threw her hands up in disbelief. "You're giving up $300,000 for a failing business in the middle of nowhere," she exclaimed. "It's not about the money," I tried to explain. "This store meant something to Dad. It meant something to this town." Andrew scoffed. "Dad's gone, Anna. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. Take the money. You've always been the family failure. Why prove it more than you already have?" Their words stung just like they always did. Andrew, the successful banker, and Lisa, the high-powered lawyer, always the golden children, always the ones who knew better, and I, just the middle child who had stayed in Cedarville, helping Dad run the store while getting my business degree at the local college. They never understood. They never understood that this store wasn't just about business. It was about legacy. It was about Dad. The will had been read, and the property had been left to me. But instead of the $300,000 they were trying to claim for themselves, I'd chosen to keep the store. I'd chosen to believe in something that no one else saw. My decision wasn't sentimental, though. It wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about seeing the future. The next morning I sat at Dad's old desk, the weight of the decision pressing heavily on me. Andrew and Lisa had already left, their disappointment clear in the way they glared at me before walking out of the store. I didn't mind. For the first time in my life, I was making a decision based on what I truly believed. Tom Harrison, our family lawyer, had stayed behind. Tom had known me since I was a little girl. The one who stole pennies from the candy jar, and then tried to hide behind the counter. He knew the store, knew my father's business sense. As he walked in, his eyebrows raised, I could tell he was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. "Did you know about the highway expansion, Anna?" he asked, pulling out a map from his briefcase. I nodded slowly. "I've been keeping tabs on it. The state's already approved it, and it's happening next month." Tom looked at me skeptical. "You've been keeping tabs on it? How?" "Dad and I both knew something like this was coming," I said, standing and walking over to the shelves. "I've been doing my research. The highway exit is going to be right down the road from here. Once it opens, the traffic will change everything. The store might be dying now, but that's about to change." He didn't respond immediately, flipping through the plans. It was clear that the situation was complex, but the vision was becoming clearer. The weeks passed and I worked tirelessly cleaning, organizing, and planning. My siblings had written me off, but I knew what this store could become. It was the bones of something greater. The building was solid, the location was prime, and I had the resources, if only I could get the renovations done before the highway opened. The townspeople whispered, of course. They all thought I was crazy. They said I was throwing good money after bad, that the store would never survive. But I knew better. I knew that change was coming. When Ben Tucker, my old high school boyfriend, agreed to help me renovate, I knew the project was on the right track. Ben ran the best construction company in 3 counties, and he didn't hesitate when I showed him the plans. "This is more than just a general store now," I said, showing him the blueprints. "This is a hub. A distribution center. We're going bigger. We're thinking about the future." Ben gave me a quiet look, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. "It'll cost a lot," he warned. I know, I said unfazed. But I've got investors lined up. Local business owners who believe in Cedarville's future. The renovation process was brutal. It drained my savings, it drained my patience, and sometimes I doubted whether I was making the right decision. But when I looked at the plans and saw Dad's notes on the margins, I knew he believed in this. He had always seen the potential even when no one else did. My siblings didn't know about the highway exit. They didn't know what I was planning. They kept trying to pressure me into selling, but I refused. They thought I was foolish. But I had learned long ago that sometimes, the quiet one who no one pays attention to is the one who sees things clearly. The highway would change everything. When the highway expansion was officially announced, I stood in the middle of the store, watching the town council members set up for the press conference across the street. The store's doors whispered open and closed as customers began filtering in, more and more every day. The renovations were complete, and the timing couldn't have been better. I heard my phone buzz in my pocket. Another text from Andrew. We need to talk. In person. Please. The word please was what caught my attention. My brother had never said please to me before. My siblings were starting to realize what they had missed. They came to see me that afternoon. I had just finished meeting with the executives from National Market Chain, the largest retailer in the region. They were interested in partnering with the store, turning it into a franchise. They had finally realized what I had seen all along. Anna, we were wrong, Lisa said, her voice quiet and full of regret. We didn't understand what Dad saw. We didn't understand what you saw. We want to be a part of this, not take over. We just want to help. I looked at them, at the people who had always dismissed me, and I saw something I had never seen before: respect. I'll think about it, I said. But in truth, I already knew what I was going to do. This was my legacy now. My father's dream. And I had built it not just for him but for me and for Cedarville. The months that followed transformed the town. The new highway exit brought travelers, new businesses, and fresh life. Miller's General Store became the heart of Cedarville. It wasn't just a general store anymore. It was a community center, a distribution hub, and the pride of the town. My siblings, now silent partners, helped with the expansion. They didn't question my decisions. They didn't try to take control. They watched as their foolish sister turned the store into something more. 1 year after the highway opened, we held a celebration in the parking lot. Local vendors, live music, and hundreds of people gathered to enjoy the sunshine and the success of the town. As I stood beside the iconic Miller's sign, I remembered my father's words. Sometimes you have to believe in something before anyone else can see it. I had believed, and now everyone else did too. The celebration lasted well into the evening. Cedarville, once a forgotten town caught between the past and the future, had found its future in the most unlikely of places, right here, in the humble Miller's General Store. People mingled, laughed, and reminisced about the old days while marveling at the new. The new businesses along the highway had brought some much-needed change, but Miller's General Store, with its coffee bar, local artisan goods, and bustling atmosphere, was the centerpiece. The hub of it all. As I walked through the crowd, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. A pride that had taken years to build and more than a few sleepless nights. When I first started this journey, I wasn't sure if my siblings would ever come around. They had laughed at me when I'd chosen the store over the inheritance. They had dismissed the small-town store as a relic of the past. But now, as they stood by my side, I saw the quiet respect in their eyes. This was no longer about proving something to them. It was about proving something to myself. Later that evening, as the crowd began to thin and the last few vendors packed up, Ben found me by the old Miller's sign. It was a quiet moment between the two of us, one that felt like we had both come full circle. You did it, Anna, Ben said, his voice full of awe. You really did it. I smiled at him, remembering all those years ago when I had walked away from this town, ready to prove that I could be more than just a small-town girl. I had left Cedarville, gone to school, and made a life for myself in the city. But in the back of my mind, I had always known that Miller's General Store would be waiting for me. I just had to figure out how to make it work. We did it, I corrected him. We all did it. Dad would be proud. Ben nodded. He always believed you could do it. I looked over at the newly renovated store, the modern retail fixtures shining under the soft glow of the streetlights. It wasn't just about the store. It was about this town. It was about making people believe in Cedarville again. Making people see that we could be something more. Ben smiled softly, his gaze lingering on the bustling parking lot. And now they do. In the weeks that followed, Cedarville's transformation became impossible to ignore. The highway exit had opened, and traffic was pouring in from all directions. Travelers, tourists, and locals alike found themselves passing by Miller's General Store. The retail hub, the heart of Cedarville, became a symbol of how a little belief could change everything. Not just for me but for everyone in town. As promised, my siblings had become silent partners. Andrew and Lisa had learned the lesson the hard way. They had underestimated me, written me off as the family failure. But now, as they watched the store and the town grow, they saw what they had missed. They never tried to take control. They never questioned my decisions. Instead, they focused on what they were good at: business. But it wasn't their business anymore. Miller's was mine. The days became a blur of growth and new opportunities. With the increased traffic from the highway, more businesses wanted to set up shop along the new route. Cedarville was no longer a dying town, it was a town on the rise. The renovations to the store had attracted attention, and the expanded space allowed us to serve not only the retail customers, but also become a hub for distribution. The warehouse space we'd added became essential for businesses in the region who needed a reliable distribution point. But it wasn't just about the business. It was about the people. Cedarville's residents, the ones who had stuck around when others left, were the true backbone of the store. They worked alongside me, helping the store thrive, and they became partners in the vision. Together, we had turned Miller's General Store into something bigger than any of us had imagined. One day, as I stood in the back office, reviewing the contracts for a new batch of distribution clients, I heard a familiar voice calling from the front. It was Andrew. I rolled my eyes, prepared for another round of "we need to talk." I hadn't seen him much since the highway announcement. He'd been busy trying to save face, trying to prove to his colleagues that he was still a force in the business world, despite losing several key clients to Miller's distribution service. I walked out to the front of the store and found him standing in front of the coffee bar, looking uncomfortable as always. "Anna," he started, his voice lower than usual, "we need to talk. Real business." I raised an eyebrow. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Andrew cleared his throat, visibly hesitant. "We've been talking with a few developers about the area. They've been eyeing Cedarville ever since the highway opened. They want to turn the old town square into a shopping mall, and they've got some pretty serious offers." I crossed my arms, unimpressed. "Let me guess. They want to buy Miller's too." Andrew nodded. "They're offering a lot of money, Anna. More than you could make by running this place. You've got a good thing going here, but you can't deny that the money would change everything. It's a big opportunity. It would secure your future." I felt the sting of his words, but I didn't flinch. I had heard this before. "I'm not selling," I said simply. Andrew frowned, frustration creeping into his voice. "Anna, I'm not saying you should sell everything. But think about it. If you sell part of the store, you could make a fortune. You've built something great here. Why not cash in while you still can?" I shook my head. "That's not what this is about, Andrew. This store, this town, it's not about selling out. It's about building something real. Something lasting." He looked at me, his expression softening slightly. "I get it now. I just thought, maybe you'd change your mind." "I've already made my decision," I said firmly. "I don't need the money. I need to keep building." Andrew hesitated before nodding. "All right. I'll respect that." But I could see the wheels turning in his head, the conflict between business sense and family loyalty. In the end, he wasn't ready to let go. But I was. I had learned long ago that sometimes you have to let go of the past to move forward. Months passed, and Miller's General Store continued to thrive. The town's revitalization became undeniable. More businesses opened along the highway, but Miller's remained the anchor of Cedarville's economy. I had built something more than just a store, I had built a legacy. Then one evening, as I stood in Dad's old office, gazing out the window at the bustling parking lot below, I received another unexpected visitor. This time it was Lisa. I had not seen her for weeks. I knew she had been keeping busy, handling some legal matters, but now here she was standing in the doorway. "You were right," she said quietly, stepping inside. "About the store. About everything." I blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "Dad didn't leave you the store because he was sentimental. He left it to you because he knew you could make it something great." I let her words sink in, realizing that this moment was the beginning of something I had long hoped for. A moment of understanding between us. "I didn't believe in it," she continued. "I didn't believe in you. But now, I see it. You've done something incredible here, Anna. I was wrong." I smiled softly. "We were all wrong. But that's how it goes, isn't it? Sometimes you have to be the one who believes when no one else does." She nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to help. Not to take over, but to be a part of this. To help grow it. Dad would be proud." I stood up and reached for the plans that Dad had left behind. The ones he had sketched out with his own hand. The ones that showed the future he had seen for Miller's General Store. "Then let's do this," I said. "Together." The store continued to flourish, but now it had something more. It had the unity of a family who had come full circle. Andrew and Lisa, once so certain that I was making a mistake, had come to understand what I had always known. It wasn't about the money. It was about legacy, about vision, about believing in something bigger than yourself. In the end, we all had a role to play. The story of Miller's General Store wasn't just mine. It was our story, our family's story. And Cedarville? Cedarville had a future once again.